a city website, let them know that unless they have flood insurance, they have nothing. Homeowners insurance does not cover flood. It doesn't cover mud flow. It doesn't cover mud debris. Let them know. Let them know that if they're a renter, and if they don't have renter's insurance that covers these kinds of losses, they have nothing. Let them know that these programs that you're talking about are loans. They're not going to put them in housing, temporary or otherwise. They're not going to pay them for the loss of their belongings. They're not going to pay them for the loss of their cars. They're not going to pay them for anything. Let them know it's a sad truth, but they need to know. Otherwise, these poor people keep searching. They keep searching for money to help them. Let them know that the city is under no obligation to pay them anything. Tell the truth here. Instead of guiding them to this website, this phone number, this location, where they're dragging themselves to get information, get a coverage attorney to get online or to get on your TV show and tell them what they have and have not as far as coverage and benefits. You know, I'm sitting here watching this. What a waste of time. And I feel so sorry for these people. You know, floods are an act of God. Acts of God, as you should know, are excluded from all insurance coverage. All insurance coverage. Let the people know. Instead of holding out a carrot
30
for them to
seconds.
go searching for something that can help them. Pathetic. Thank you very much. Please help them.
Thank you for the information. Any additional speakers?
Mayor Zaragoza, there's no additional speakers.
Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you.
City Manager?
I'll pick it up from here. So we actually don't have a director's order to ratify tonight, although we may at the next meeting. So with regard to the December storm, a couple of things I want to highlight. First of all, we do our best to understand and appreciate the severity of the impact to the families that were flooded. A couple things I want to review. In terms of what the city is able to do, we did provide assistance with cleaning out many of the damaged items. We did provide initially several nights for temporary hotel stays. We did send code inspectors to make sure that the properties, especially the rental units, were habitable. I understand in one case we did have to yellow tag several of the units, and we have been and continue to work with that property owner to get the property rehabbed as soon as possible to make it habitable. Now, you did hear from George at the SBA the distinction between the floods last year and this year and why FEMA kicked in last year and not this year. And as a reminder, in the storm a year ago, actually, people died in that storm in some communities north of us. And then in the storm this past weekend, which fortunately for us blew over us pretty quickly, last I heard 3 people had passed away, I believe mostly from falling trees. I don't know yet if FEMA will kick in, but because the December storm in Oxnard, while it was devastating for some of our families, it wasn't large enough on the scale of FEMA for FEMA assistance to come. So, and as this recent speaker put pretty bluntly, the city itself is not a replacement insurance pool for our residents. As much as we wish we could do more to help, it's not our actual role. That's why we have SBA and FEMA. So, but we continue to seek assistance. So a couple things. Many weeks ago, we asked the Ventura Community Foundation if they would raise funds for our residents, and they committed to doing so, and they have indeed raised a small amount of funding. And I have to let them announce the program since it's their fundraising, but my understanding is that we'll be able to provide, I think it's going to be $1,000 for each family that was impacted by the flood. And that's thanks to the Ventura County Community Foundation and the leadership of their director, Vanessa Bechtel. Hopefully we can announce that program with them early next week at the latest. Also, Congresswoman Julia Brownlee came to visit us at the SBA Center at the South Oxnard Library a couple weeks ago. And she informed us, and I know this is no solace for the residents who've been impacted thus far, but she did tell us she will be introducing a bill in Congress to update the regulations of FEMA so that a storm like what hit Oxnard would trigger FEMA's assistance. So hopefully that will work out, but we're very appreciative of her attention and care to our community and taking that effort on. So that's where we are right now. I know not everyone is going to qualify for the SBA loans, but if you at least try and you get that initial rejection, you do have up to 6 months to ask for reconsideration. And if you want help to pursue that consideration, contact us and we will do everything we can to help you get through the SBA bureaucracy, because it is complex, even though their staff have been very good at working with residents. So hopefully by early next week, we will get an announcement with the Community Foundation out for the residents of Oxnard and Port Hueneme, and perhaps even a few residents in the city of Ventura who may have been impacted. And that's all I have for the storm update, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Perrello, any additional questions?
Yes, I would like to thank the city manager for his recent comments, but I'd also like to thank the city staff for putting this portion of the meeting together. I don't know if any other communities have had the representatives from the Small Business Association show up, but my kudos to the city of Oxnard staff.
Councilman Turan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that update to the city manager. I'm looking back at our staff report from our January 16th city council meeting where we ratified a number of items on a resolution under this agenda item. And one of them was waiving fees for damaged or lost solid waste containers that floated away or were carried away by the flooding or the storm. The second was payment of relocation benefits for individuals displaced by severe flooding, which we heard about a little bit tonight. The other was suspending street sweeping citations for vehicles rendered inoperable due to severe flooding. One that is not on here, but was a previous one, was regarding permitting fees for those who are doing repairs. And I believe that we had a timeline attached to that, correct, on when, how long that would be in place, those, the deferral of those fees or those charges. Do you remember if, I think it was February 12th, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so he's nodding his head, yes. Would we be able to put messaging out to folks to remind them that that would be sunsetting unless it were re-ratified, but also for like the solid waste containers? I hope anyone who's listening to this or someone who can share it with their neighbors, if they still have not located that and it was a direct effect of the storm, please get in contact with our environmental resources folks so you can get that replaced while this is still in play, the waiving of those fees. Same with the permitting for work, and then the same for inoperable vehicles due to flooding. Make sure that if you found a alternative location, whether it be a driveway or a repair shop or whatever the case may be, that those vehicles are able to be moved before this expires.
And my understanding, Mr. City Manager, that the ER has already replaced most of those containers, according to the emails I received. Just for information.
Yes.
Okay, any additional information? Any?
Well, on that topic, no, I have one other topic.
Okay,
but
go
that's
ahead.
a different, I want to see if there's other comments.
Do we need a motion on this item? No? Okay, thank you. So go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
Okay, let's see how we can transition this, totally different topic now. So, in the back of the council chambers, the audience is right, my left up here, there is a new mural on our walls, and we're going to invite Julie Estrada from our Recreation and Cultural Services Department to come and share with everyone that special project.
Welcome, Julie.
Good evening. There should be a presentation with this.
Get closer to this mic. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Diego?
Diego, do we have the presentation? There it is. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. I'm Julia Estrada with the Culture and Community Services Department, and I manage our cultural arts programs. I'm here today to introduce the new addition to council chambers for the month of February. On January 14th and 15th, youth participated in the second annual MLK Community Weekend presented by the Gathering for Justice and held at the Oxnard Police Activities League Gymnasium. This event is dedicated to empowering youth and furthering the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The Cultural Arts Division's programs are dedicated to the message that art is for everyone, and has created avenues where young people can create art, especially murals, despite their artistic ability. This can be seen just across the street, where the Mini Murals program every year adds to the collection of murals transforming the downtown parking structure. It is because of this work that the cultural arts staff was asked to design a visual representation of the 6 principles of Kingian nonviolence, in which the youth can actively participate in its creation. This year, over 125 youth participated in completing this mural from both this event and the Oxnard Arts Academy. The concept of the mural's design is displaying a visual echo of the 6 Kingian principles of nonviolence. The image of Dr. King during his I Have a Dream speech was incorporated into the design with the replacement of his suit with clothing compiled of various designs representing many cultures, showing that Dr. King's message of peace is for everyone. Some of the cultures represented in the designs of the coat include Native American, African, and Asian. I would like to take a moment to recognize Diana Reyes, our recreation coordinator, who's here today. She is assigned to art for us and has designed the artwork and led the youth in completing this project. She was assisted by Tess Zuffalo, our recreation aide, who was assigned to arts. And I would also like to mention members of our city core team, Peter Rosales and Eddie Dominguez, who quickly came together and constructed the frame and framed the actual canvas for us, as well as our facilities team, who was able to get it hung in time for today's meeting. In addition to the mural that is hanging here in Chambers, we have displayed a collage piece in the West Lobby that was put together by the Oxnard Arts Academy Southwinds class. Each student designed a section of the piece, and the image when put together is of Dr. King. The Arts Academy students also created the doves surrounding that image to support the message of peace and unity. The Oxnard Arts Academy is a youth program that builds creative spaces for youth to freely express themselves. The visual arts class, who participated in both of these projects, provides formal instruction to elementary-age youth. Students learn to use various art tools and materials to become confident with a wide variety of art media and techniques. They learn basic art vocabulary, including the elements of art. They generate and express ideas independently and as collaborators. They learn to recognize and use all stages of the creative process, gain awareness of the role of arts throughout history and cultures. And most importantly, students develop confidence and experience joy through the creative expression. The Culture and Community Services Department is excited to be able to contribute to the celebration of Black History Month and showcase this work that has been created by the community for the community, and show that art is not just for the few, but truly is for everyone. Thank you for your time tonight and for continuing to support the cultural arts programs here at Oxnard.
Thank you so much. It's beautiful, and it really is fantastic, that we're doing that for our children and our families here in Oxnard. And this image of Dr. Martin Luther King is really fantastic. And I want to thank the Oxnard Academy, for the good work that you do, and Terrell, for your staff. You always do good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager, anything else? Okay, thank you, Julie. Okay, our next item is item H, and this is the time for the city council members to make a brief presentation of their activities, and also if they'd like to place any items in the agenda. In 3 minutes, because we're really running behind. We'll start off with Mr. Ron. 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yes, thank you. Real quickly, I attended the Carriage Square Neighborhood Council meeting last week, and it was their first meeting of 2024, and it was a good meeting. They had a fair turnout, even though it was pouring rain and very cold. I do want to announce that the chair, Len Schulman, made it publicly known at that meeting that he would not be seeking a re-election for that chair when it comes up this summer. And that's after 2.5 decades almost of serving as the chair for that neighborhood. And he is inviting residents who live in the Carriage Square neighborhood, which is the neighborhood around Eastwood Park and Curran School. If you would like to find out about becoming a chair or part of the executive board, he would love to help with that recruitment to replace him in the coming election for that. So stay tuned for that, and you can reach out if you have any questions. Second is River Park Neighborhood Council will be meeting tomorrow, February 7th at 6 p.m. at Rio Vista School, and they'll be meeting in the library, I believe. And lastly, just regarding the requests that were made tonight, I would like to check with staff about the potential for an appointment item in the future for the CPA reach codes. And I see head nods yes, so we will follow up on that. So, all right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Madrigal.
Real quickly, next Thursday, Rio Lindo neighborhood is meeting at 7 p.m. at Rio Lindo School. And then I believe it might be tomorrow. It is tomorrow that the Rose Park neighborhood is having their meeting at Rose Avenue School, which, if I'm not mistaken, might be one of their last meetings at the old site. So that'll be good.
Thank you. Councilor Basua.
I've got no comments. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week was my Ventura County Transportation Commission meeting. We talked about upcoming projects for the 101 corridor. Tomorrow is Gold Coast Transportation, the bus service locally. And one of the items of discussion at both of them, because they interrelate, is we've had another subsidence on the Losan Rail Corridor in San Clemente, and we've once again lost use of the rail tracks. If you've never ridden the train from Oxnard down to San Diego, it's a wonderful ride. It's even better when the tracks are operable all the way down, so you don't have to jump onto a bus mid-trip, but we're hoping to get back up and running pretty quickly. And if anybody is watching the news, Oxnard was very fortunate the last 24 to 48 hours in that a storm that was slated for this area went south of us, nationally impacted Los Angeles and Orange County much more severely than it did us. And there's houses that have slid off of foundations. It's just been a terrible mess down there. So, please be vigilant of your neighbors, especially during the storm period. And we shall get through this eventually, hopefully. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Perrello.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the speakers on the event tonight, and I'd also really, again, like to thank city staff for getting the Small Business Administration here. Recently, there was an event in Thousand Oaks where Clean Power Alliance, as a member that was invited, there was a presentation of a check of $12 million. $800,000 is to go to the city of Oxnard for electrification units, charging units, located throughout the area. Congressman Brownlee and the other gentleman, Congressman Carbajal, thank you, Mr. Malzola, were in attendance. There were some comments made that I think were a little confusing to me, but I think it would be wise to possibly get Kathleen Mallory, our energy person, to make a small presentation about what's going to happen, where this is going to take place, what we're going to get, what are the obligations. I would also like to thank the City of Oxnard staffs from Solid Waste and the Traffic Department. 3 individuals showed up on a rainy night, city staff, at the Sea View neighborhood for a crowd of 30 people that came out in the rain. It was a tremendous evening. And the chair in that organization, tremendous organization. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Valenzuela.
Yes. On Wednesday, January 17th, I joined the city manager and another city staff member, I believe Annie, at the Bryce Canyon Neighborhood Council meeting. It was lightly attended, but we had some delicious lasagna made by Mr. John Hike. Sunday, January 21st, I actually took a personal visit out to downtown Riverside to check out the Cheech Marin exhibit, where I actually got to meet Cheech Marin himself, and I got to check out the downtown overall to see some of the work that our city manager, Alex Nguyen, did when he worked at the public agency for the city of Riverside out there, and seeing over the past 8 years transform. It's a day and night between like 2016 and 2024. On Monday, January 22nd, I had the opportunity to join the California Faculty Association on their strike, and I guess fortunately, it was ended up being a one-day strike where the CSU system offered them a tentative agreement. So now we'll see how that plays out. Because we have plenty of CFA members who are also residents here in Oxnard. Potentially who may have potentially not been getting paid while on strike, but happy to see that was resolved. Later that day, afternoon, I actually took a tour of fire stations 2 and 3 and 8 with our fire chief Hamilton, which I really appreciate all the information he shared with me, and really the need to modernize our fire stations 2 and 3, buildings that are 50 plus years old and are in South Oxnard and need an update for increase our public safety, and also the long conversation on needing to improve our EMS response times. On Tuesday, January 23rd, I was actually able to join our Mayor Pro Tem, City Manager, with the SBA Loan Center and the South Oxnard Center. On Saturday, January 27th, I worked with some Redwood neighborhood residents to clean up our alleyways on Teakwood between the cities of Oxnard and Port Hueneme. We were able to do that successfully in a span of less than 3 hours, and I was very thankful for the park staff to come join us that day. On Tuesday, January 30th, had the opportunity to sit down with some of our firefighters, Ulysses, Grant, Cord, Dan, Danny, and Andrew, to discuss some of the issues that Fire Station 1 takes care of in center of Oxnard, and just hearing some of their concerns as city staff. Monday, February 5th, actually, just yesterday, I took a tour of our Del Norte recycling facility. Very impressed with the work that staff does there, sorting our waste and making sure that just keep you up to state mandates and codes for all the work. And actually, it's kind of a fun fact because 9 years ago, I actually had a Facebook memory come up where I posted where I got an A on a research paper at UCSB, citing part of Oxnard reclaiming the recycling facility back in 2013, 2014. So I thought that was pretty funny to see that. Some of the things coming up. Tomorrow, I'll actually be meeting with some of the Port of Hueneme staff to discuss, what their goals are and how they plan on expanding eastward into the city of Oxnard's sphere of influence. Thursday, there's a Southwest Neighborhood Council at 6 p.m. at Haycock School. On Monday, there's like the 4-hour open house with the Interface Children and Family Services in their facility in Camarillo. So I'll be looking forward to attending that. Next Monday, there's also a Calgisler neighborhood meeting at 6 p.m. at Elm Street. Yeah, and then the Monday after that, I will be joining park staff to take a look at our South Oxnard parks and some of our potential improvements. And actually, here's another thing. I actually joined a 5K fun run with for the Hueneme Beach for a Community Benefit Fund with the Port of Hueneme and City of Port Hueneme, where, hopefully I can do the 5K still, because at my peak, I was able to do it in 19 minutes. I'll just be lucky if I can get it done this time. But yeah, and then also hearing the words from some of our speakers, I was looking forward to see if we could agendize, file and receive informational session or appointment session for the Clean Power Alliance on the REACH codes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to thank, our police chief and our fire chief and our city manager for keeping us updated on this storm that we had. It was mentioned, we were pretty lucky that we only had a couple of inches of rain compared to Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and those folks. But thank again to first responder Chief Hamilton and Jason. Thank you so much, and Mr. City Manager for keeping us up to speed. Thank you. Okay, our next item is Cultural and Community Service Department. Subject is appointment of 2 representatives to the Ventura County Area and Agency Advisory Council. Recommendation: the City Council approve the recommendation from the Senior Services Commission to appoint 2 senior service commissioners to the Ventura County Area and Agency. Need a motion on this item?
Excuse me, Mayor Zaragoza.
Any speakers on this item?
There's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no discussion, I will move the recommended action.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Perella. Please vote.
And by the way, we're both senior citizens.
The senior, are you 2 the ones that are appointed? Please vote.
Boy, walk into that.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item is a review of the information consent agenda items. And we have 1 to 6 up to 6 items. We have 1 speaker here that on my list. Jesus, is he available?
Yes, Mayor Zaragoza, Jesus is available virtually.
Okay, let's go ahead and have Jesus before we go into the 6 items.
Jesus, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Jesus Rojas for the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. I'm speaking on agenda item K6. We represent the rental housing providers throughout Ventura, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino counties, including many in Oxnard. We are the local voice of the rental housing industry and have substantial concerns in the new language that is being proposed, and strongly urge that this language be further revised. We are not opposed to the entire ordinance or most of the new requirements contained in the proposed ordinance. However, the new language stating, quote, "A tenant is not required to vacate the residential real property on any days where a tenant could continue living in the residential real property without the violation of health, safety, and habitability legal requirements," is extremely problematic. This provision will most likely lead many renters to willfully jeopardize their own health and safety, create needless arguments between renters and owners, and cause substantial delays or prevent necessary substantial repairs and maintenance. As such, we strongly object to this specific sentence remaining in the proposed ordinance. It is simply unreasonable to expect renters to know and understand the details and nuances of health, safety, and habitability code language and construction processes. As such, this provision will only encourage renters to put their own safety at risk without full understanding the dangers involved, such as potential exposure to unknown hazardous materials, excessive noise causing long-term hearing damage, potential fall risk, lack of consistent electricity causing food spoilage and possible food poisoning, lack of consistent heat, water, or bathroom facilities, etc. A construction zone is no place for a renter on any day during active construction. Rather than continuing to argue with renters to urge them to leave for their own safety or face substantial legal risk in allowing them to remain, many owners will simply opt not to conduct the needed substantial repairs and maintenance. As a result, they will eventually have to sell the property to a large corporation for demolition and replacement as new luxury units, providing a better return on investment to their new owners and their shareholders. This not only drives small mom and pops out of business,
30
but will
seconds.
also reduce the already limited supply of older rental housing, providing more affordable rent and lower income families. We are asking for your help to maintain existing affordable rental housing in Oxnard by assisting mom and pop owners by eliminating this one sentence from the ordinance before it moves forward. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, do we have any items on this? Can you share before we go to Councilman Turan?
Sure, if I can have Chief Assistant City Attorney Ken Rozelle address the issues.
Ken, can you please clarify what the concerns are from this?
Yes, happy to address this issue. I'm rather surprised that the Apartment Association has raised these issues. The language in the ordinance which you adopted as an urgency ordinance and which you're before you tonight to adopt is 100% consistent with the language that will go into effect as of April 1st, 2024. That's SB 567. In addition, the language that you adopted as part of your urgency ordinance, which is before you tonight, is consistent with the requirements of AB 1467. It does provide greater protection than the underlying bill, which we're allowed to do. A number of other jurisdictions throughout California have adopted similar language, and I want to emphasize again that the language in your ordinance is directly from SB 567, which goes into effect as of April 1st.
So Ken, regardless, it would have been gone into effect April 1 anyway.
Correct. That will be the law throughout the entire state. So I think the important point is, and I'm a little disappointed that he didn't explain why he's pushing this. The issue that was before the council while you adopted the interim ordinance was to ensure that before a property owner can evict a tenant for just cause, that there be a substantial remodel. He is proposing that tenants be ousted, and which are more likely to trigger their loss of that unit, and which would allow the property owner to then raise the rent. So I think he's much less concerned about the interest of the tenants, much more concerned about the property owners.
The substantial remodeling is an extremely important part of it.
Correct.
That was left out.
Yeah, that is really the key issue that staff brought this to you before, and which is what Cause was bringing before the council as well, that there needs to be a substantial remodel before tenants are evicted from their property. And the ordinance which you adopted as an urgency measure and which your proposed adoption tonight would codify those more robust regulations to ensure that there actually be substantial remodel before tenants are asked to leave their home.
Councilman Turan.
Thank you. I was actually going to request that we, on the info consent agenda, pull K3 and K6, but since we're on K6, I'll just real quickly thank Mr. Rozelle for those comments. I was going to hope that we would be able to make some kind of response to the emails we received as well as a comment tonight, so thank you for that. I'll just add that I hope that the Apartment Association can look to give renters a little bit more credit on things like this. I can't foresee many situations where a person will hypothetically insist on staying in what could be a dangerous situation where there's construction happening or paint being sanded with potential lead in it, and anything that, as the definition or as the sentence said, falls under a health and safety code. Certainly the person probably wouldn't want to be there anyways, but as a renter myself, I can't imagine pushing so hard as I need to stay in my home while you're tearing out drywall and taking things down to the studs. And so I appreciate the response, Mr. Rizal. Again, I hope that as we move forward with this and other jurisdictions look at this prior to April 1st, that we give a little bit more credit to the intelligence of folks who are renters. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Steve. Okay, council members,
Mayor Zaragoza?
any?
There are no
Any other?
there are no additional speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you, council members. What's the pleasure?
I'll move the recommended action.
Move recommendation by.
I had K3 still.
Oh, I'm sorry, K3.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and K3.
Thank you. Just a quick thing for K3. So we have an agreement for landscape architecture services for Durley Park Improvement Project. And I was just hoping that it looks like Mr. Howlett will be here. If we could just very briefly let folks know what we're looking at for this. And this is part of the state grant that we received for Durley Park improvements, correct?
Correct. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, this is in response to a grant from the state. So it's the State Park Development and Community Revitalization Program, where the city was awarded $7.1 million, rounded up, 7.09. Anyway, yes, so this is part of the revitalization of Durley Park, and part of the scope of work is to realign the baseball fields, add lighting, security lighting, update with a walking track, new restrooms, skate park, pump track, new basketball court, exercise stations, water conservation efforts in the landscapes, a new parking lot on the west side, and then the 2 water towers that are on the property will get a mural. So what's before you tonight is for the management, design, and the bidding phase and the construction phase management. That also includes the potential for charrettes to meet with the communities. So as we go through the design process of this renovation of this park, that we can share it with the users of the facility, definitely the Sunset Little League, and coordinate that with them. So that's also included in the scope of work for this project.
Great, thank you for that. And would be remiss if I didn't mention that leading up to this, part of the application and the awarding of the grant did have robust community outreach for folks who live around Durley Park to provide input on what they would like to see at the park, which led us to where we are today, correct?
Correct.
Great, thank you. And lastly, this is I don't want to get off the agenda item, but there's a reason the restrooms aren't listed here, because that's a separate project that's already in process. Is that correct?
Sure.
There's 2 restrooms. So there is a restroom as part of this project, and then there is the Durley Park Fire that is out to bid right now for repairs.
Yes, that's what I meant. Just so folks know that that is a separate project from what we have in front of us for Durley Park.
Project, correct.
Great. All right, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Howlett.
Steve, real quick, did I hear you also the removal of the tanks up there too?
No, not the removals, the painting of a mural on the tanks.
Okay, because those tanks have been there for forever. Okay, Councilman Perello?
Yes, just one question on this. The landscape architect services, they could potentially make a plan. How long do the plans have before they become what's called stale? So if something were to come up, a situation in the future, we couldn't act on those plans. Can planning staff help out? Like, how long do these plans become stale where then they'd have to come back and make a new plan? 1 year, 2 years?
I believe Michael Wolf, our Director Michael Wolf, is coming up, but this agreement is for 5 years. Mm-hmm. We intend to use up this grant before it expires, so the funding is available. We don't foresee any reason why these funds would not be available moving forward. So as we design, as part of the scope of work of this is not only design, but this consultant will also go into the project management for out to bid and then the actual construction as well.
Okay, I believe that answers my questions. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we got a
Mr.
first.
Howlett, thank you.
Excuse me. A first by Councilman Perello. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Charan. Please vote. From 1 to 6.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item is L1. This is a report, City Treasurer Quarterly Investment Report for the period ending December 29, 2023. Recommendation City Council receive and file this report. And there was a pre-recorded item per Measure M. And we have Mr. Molina, if you have any questions. Any speakers on this item?
Mayor Zaragoza, there's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Councilmember, what's the pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I have an additional presentation. I hope it's
Well,
ready.
can we do, under Measure M, can,
If the presiding officer allows it, yes.
well, how long? Go ahead.
There's some
Okay, go
material on the screen.
Mayor, before we move on, has this been shared with the city clerk for the public? Because the agenda and the materials associated were released 12 days ago, so I just want to make sure that we're good on that.
That's, you're right. So,
This presentation has not been shared with the public.
so I think that
Well, I thought that's the purpose of this. We've had other times when people come forward with a presentation, but you asked for an update, you asked for additional information, and that's what I
But we
wanted to
have,
provide.
you had an opportunity to share this information under pre-recorded, per Measure M. Mr. City Attorney, where do we stand on this item? If the public doesn't have this?
If it hasn't been made available to the public, and if the council doesn't wish to receive it, you can receive and file the presentation, which is all that the statute requires.
We can receive and file. How long is the presentation?
It'll probably be all of 2 or 3 minutes.
Go ahead then.
If that. And Councilman Turan has requested in the past to have additional updated information.
No, go ahead,
so
go
I-
ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Mhm.
If the IT people, so you've all been provided the financial information. In that information, we identified that the total amount that we have invested is $437,262,586. But what I'd like to have, and I don't know if someone has a clicker there, we have $75 million, which is a large chunk of that, invested in Lathe. And what I wanted to do is to show you, oh, I guess it doesn't work, that, no,
There you go.
go back. There you go. That as of December, Lathe has increased their rate to 3.9. Not too long ago, it was at 2.7. So as you can see, we've had some good increases in the rates at the amount that we have invested with Lathe. The next one, please. And I apologize if I sneeze. I'm not doing too well. So the next one, if you would. So I wanted to show you the amount of our investments that are being held by U.S. Bank. Remember, we buy the instruments, but we have a third-party bank, U.S. Bank, actually hold those instruments, and they make sure that before our money is released to the brokers, that they have in fact received the investments. And when we're investing between $1 million and sometimes $10 million at a time, it's important to make sure that we have a bank that's receiving it and responsible for making sure that the transaction is done correctly. So in the investments that are reported through U.S. Bank, 43 million are in corporate issues, and we have the balance 270 million are in U.S. government issues. And the reason for U.S. government GSE is virtually the security. Those more recently have gone up to 5.9. There was one out about 3 weeks ago at 6.07, and we picked that one up. Unfortunately, they called it back three weeks later. So, because as the rates move up and down, they'll have a call provision. Next one, please. So what we have are the amounts of the investments. We saw that with U.S. Bank, we have a total of $316,010,274. And as I mentioned, we have 75 million with Lathe, and we have 31 million with the Ventura County Investment Pool for the total of $422,010,272.50. And these are market value as opposed to cost. Next, please. So if you would like additional information, I think, excuse me, I sent members of the investment committee that are on the council recently a list of all the investments that we have and hold, and ask for your review. If you have any concerns or questions or would suggest I move into some other types of investments, please let me know. With that, I think we're pretty well done. We are estimating that we will, as of December 29th, our estimate for total annual interest earnings will be 11,436,967. But as of today, reviewing the interest rates and what's happening, we may be able to clear 14 million in an estimate for the next fiscal year. But I do need some information with the finance director in terms of the projected cash flows for major projects. The normal operations I can handle, but I don't know what those large CIP projects are due and when they're going to have payments due. And that obviously will diminish the amount of money that's available to invest. So with that, I'm open to any questions you may have. And thank you for letting me make the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. City. Any additional questions? If not, thank you so much. This is a receive and file. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is the Finance Department. This is subject is fiscal year 23-24 budget mid-year review. Recommendation that City Council would receive an update on the fiscal year 23-24 revenue and expenditure projections for major funds, and to approve the budget amendments within the golf development impact fees, contribution, trust and facility maintenance, and also related funds as explained in this report. I have, Mr. Javier, the CFO, I have a question. Can you give us a brief explanation on the revenues and expenditures for the mid-year and how potentially they're going to affect us here for June 30th coming into the new July 1 fiscal year as we progress? Can you give us a little brief? I know there was a recording, but just give us a brief explanation on the revenues and expenditures and the effect it's going to have on the coming fiscal year.
Will do. Thank you for the question, and good evening, Mayor and Council members. What we, as we explained in the report, what we're doing in this mid-year review, we're looking at what the budget has was adopted and what have changed in the budget in the year, because the City Council has taken some actions that are being increased in the budget. We have also, as part of the year-end process, basically we do a big carryover for the capital projects that were budgeted in the prior year, and they were funded, but were not completely executed, and there's a portion of that that is also carried forward for this fiscal year.
So the expenditures we have, what, about $20 million carryover?
And the general fund is approximately that amount. So as part of that process, what we also do is we reach out to the different departments, and we ask them to help us to evaluate if something on the revenue side are going to be similar or there's significant changes in what we have in the budget. And the same thing with expenses. In addition to this carryover that I was explaining for capital projects, we also ask departments if there's any significant professional services that are going to be different than what we have in the budget to help us to come up with these estimates that we have for the end of the fiscal year. And what we're seeing is that some revenues are going a little bit higher than we have in the budget in terms of sales tax, but some other expenses, where we include the carryover, are also going to be a little bit higher, and they're being offset for some others. But overall, the funds are doing okay, as we were expecting. There's some projects that are being funded with carryover, and with some funds that, especially the Environmental Resources Fund, is something that we are keeping a close eye on that fund because of the projects that they have, and currently with the current evaluation of future rates for that fund.
And Javier, on the Bradley Burns taxes, how are we doing with Measure E? Measure E, I think I looked at about a $300,000.
Overall, sales taxes for the city, they are benefiting from the establishment of the Amazon Fulfillment Center in the city. So that is helping the overall sales tax to be performing better than our neighborhood communities.
And I know I mentioned the Bradley Burns, and that's the 1.25 that the state collects, and then we get, the county gets 1%, and then we it's distributed the other parts to the cities and so forth.
That's
So we're doing kind of okay with that.
Yes, the city is doing okay with that.
Council members, any questions on the midterm?
Mayor Zaragoza?
Any?
There's one virtual speaker on this item.
Okay. Mhm.
Manuel Herrera, please press star 6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello.
Go ahead, Manuel.
Yes, thank you. So, in watching the video on YouTube earlier today regarding this item, I know it's just an update, and I know it had to do because of unexpected expenditures and so forth. But in watching the video, it prompted some questions that I had. So I thought when better to ask about it than now, right, during the council meeting. Mm-hmm. So my question is, with all this litigation with Aaron Starr, that's obviously costing the taxpayers of Oxnard millions of dollars. So my question is, how does that impact the budget? And because we never know when we're going to be sued by him, so, how do you plan for that? And where does the money come from? Like, what category, what bucket does that come from? The general fund, or can you explain to the people how this works? And also, and more importantly, if I can get an answer tonight of how much so far has Aaron Starr cost the citizens of Oxnard? I know it's in the millions. So, and if you don't have an exact figure, can you give us an estimate on how much this has impacted the citizens of Oxnard and how much this has impacted the budget? And if you're not able to give me the information, how do I get that information? Do I have to do a public records request, or how would that work? So those are my questions. Thank you.
That's a good question, Matty. Mr. City Manager, well, let our City Manager explain that.
Sure. So without getting into the weeds on this at this point, I mean, the short answer to how do the various Starr lawsuits impact the budget, the short answer is it sucks. I don't know how, but well, actually, I do have better ways I can phrase that, but I can't here. But the bottom line is this. So there are a couple of parts to Mr. Herrera's question. So let me get the broad one, which is specific to the bonding litigation. While we have won at the Superior Court level, he's going to appeal. He always appeals. It's okay. That's part of our system, and everyone has their rights to do so. But the opportunity costs for us to have gotten a couple years ago municipal bonds at absurdly, historically low interest rates, that's gone now. So not only could we not access that money, which is the way all governments access money for long-term and large capital projects, we couldn't get that money at that historically low price. So we couldn't perform much of that work. And with regard to the street repair, we've had to redivert cash that we have that normally would go to other services and programs for our community. Because thanks to our Public Works Director's insistence and leadership, we have to keep up with the road maintenance. Otherwise, it'll cost us even more down the road. As behind as we are now, we can't allow for it to get even worse. So there's a huge impact to the city's budget, and we're talking tens of millions here, not just several million, tens of millions, and the ripple effect of the quality of life programs and services that we now cannot do. So that's a larger conversation we'll probably have to have during the budget. Now, in terms of the litigation costs, I'm sure that hasn't been cheap, and we can, at some point, we can get an updated tally on that. But that's not, that's always something that can happen to us in terms of litigation. So I don't want to get too much, too excited over that, as much as the deep concern I have about the overall impact that it has, the negative impact that it has on the community at large. Thank you.
And basically, Mr. City Manager, is impacting the general fund. The general fund, as you mentioned before, we're paying cash as opposed to leasing. And I've always kind of compared that to a mortgage. We're going to buy a house. And instead of buying a mortgage, we have to pay cash for a house, and we don't have that kind of money.
That's right.
Thank you. Councilman Perrella.
I appreciate Mr. Herrera's question. My initial question was if we could have the CFO please introduce the other two individuals at the table who do a tremendous amount of work in helping us. But before he says that, I appreciate that we've had the mayor ask some questions, how, if he could give us an update. Because the previous speaker, our city treasurer, made a comment, and I don't want to take words away or steal the thunder from any other council member. But Mr. Turan has never asked for a special public showing, which was the implication Mr. Molina said. Mr. Turan has asked for a simple additional explanation, just as the mayor did
Similar
tonight.
to,
And there was never any special thing, which, as the clerk has informed us, the public has never seen, which, according to Mr. Starr and his supporters, the treasurer being one, Measure M has required that. So I just wanted to say that. But if you could introduce, because I know I've only seen them a couple of times, and I know they do tremendous work for you, and I apologize for taking too much time there.
No, thank you, Councilmember Perello, and I apologize for not introducing my two team members here. I have Tanya Williams, who's our budget manager, and Mark Sowell, he's our assistant CFO.
Well,
Thank you very much
there
for
we
your
go.
work.
I was going to say, now that you've done that, we have to get the camera on them and look at them. Smile.
And by the way, Javier, Mark, you made a very good presentation too in the mid-year budget. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is,
Mayor Zaragoza,
any additional speakers?
we have no additional speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you so much.
There is an action item, so I would move the recommended action.
So, moved by Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Second by Valenzuela. Please vote. Thank you, Javier, Mark, and
Motion carries 7-0.
thank you. Our next item is a Public Works item. Public Works Project 32400-352 with Toro Enterprise Incorporated for citywide alley resurfacing, Fremont North Neighborhood Alley Restoration Project, PW 2411. Recommendation of the City Council to approve and authorize, one, a total of $4,592,368 in project funds from the citywide alley resurfacing Fremont Neighborhood Alley Restoration Project, specification number PW 2411. Two, that the mayor execute an agreement with Toro Enterprises Incorporated for the amount of $3,891,837 for the project. And three, the project contingency amount of $389,184, 10% for Toro Enterprises Incorporated for a total not to exceed the value amount of $4,281,021 for the project. For a project allocation amount of $311,347, 8% for engineering, inspection, and survey and project management. And five, a project budget appropriation transfer in a total amount of $4,592,368 from the 12 alleyway project number C2111 to citywide alley resurfacing project number C2102 within the General Fund 101 for $165,368 and the Measure O Fund 104 for $4,427,000. This item did not originate in committee, and this is a capital improvement project specifically listed in the citywide capital improvement program budget, which was previously approved by the City Council, and this was a pre-recorded item in per Measure M. And we have Mr. Wolf for the additional questions. Any questions about Councilman Perrella?
Yes, Mr. Wolf, thank you very much. And I want to thank you, as the city manager has identified, because of you, we're sticking with working on the streets, because if we don't stick on working with the streets, the cost will get much, much greater. But thank you for that. My question on this particular item, we do need the works on the alleys, we do need these improvements. What, for residents throughout the city of Oxnard, when a certain neighborhood is determined to have work on an alley, how is that neighborhood prioritized? How do they rank them? And some explanation, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council members, Michael Wolf, Director of Public Works. I wish we had money to do all of our paving that we need throughout the city, so it's a very tough process to only select a few. Part of that process, or most of that process, is done through data analysis. We want to make sure that we are expending the funds in the right amount in terms of prioritizing not only corrective maintenance, but preventative maintenance. And I've talked about this before. If we're chasing the worst streets, we're never going to catch up. And so the way we typically do this is we do it by several categories. We look at the pavement condition index, which is a rating of the actual existing pavement. That's typically one of our highest weighted criteria that we use. But we also look at, especially for alleys, and especially if we're going to be doing concrete alleys instead of asphalt alleys, we want to make sure that the utilities or any utilities that may be in that alleyway actually are upgraded or otherwise have a longer lifespan so that we're not back in there and digging that back up. We also look at things like average daily traffic, so the volume of vehicles that go on a street. The idea there is to have the biggest bang for your buck in terms of the number of drivers that may be using that portion. But also goes into density. Want to make sure that we're looking at the density around those alleys or those street segments. Another one that we've added recently that I've had conversations with our engineering team is taking a look at our street maintenance and where we're doing our pothole repairs. So the idea here is if we're often going out there doing pothole repairs, this should be a street segment that starts to rise to the top. Because if we are able to address that through corrective maintenance or preventative maintenance through a capital project, that allows that team to go do other things, that allows them to go do other potholes or allows them to go do other improvements. And so that's how we kind of prioritize. And then obviously we look at different areas of the city. We don't want to concentrate on one area of the city. And so those are some of the criteria that we use to do that.
Thank you very much. And it took a little line, but thank you for the explanation. Anybody that's lived in Oxnard 20 years, 30 years, they can remember long ago, it was not uncommon. There would be a street paved, and within a year, the street was cut up to replace a line. And I appreciate that that's one of the criteria that you make sure doesn't happen again. Thank you very much. And appreciate, in my neighborhood, I've been able to drive around. There are a couple of potholes that have come to the surface, but there's been a lot of rain. The city is doing a heck of a job taking care of our street, and Public Works is the big chunk of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Councilmember Tran?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. So just some quick items for this agenda item in front of us. For Fremont North neighborhood, which those who may be unaware, does fall into District 2. It's bordered by H Street on the east and Ventura Road on the west, Gonzales at the north, and Doris Avenue on the south. And folks who know where Fremont Middle School is, or Fremont Academy as it's known now, it's right in the middle of that neighborhood, along with a number of multi-unit housing dwellings, a lot of apartments, some single-family homes, a good mix of those. But looking at the map that was provided in the staff report, we have the alleys, marked that are going to be redone. Would you mind sharing just briefly, Mr. Wolf? You had mentioned or alluded to it right now. Some of these alleys are going to be, or most of these are going to be in concrete. I think one is going to be in asphalt. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And can you share with us, I know we've talked about it in the past through this council, but why would we do an alley in concrete instead of asphalt?
It's a very complex question. I'll try to simplify the answer to that one. So when we have large vehicles like trash trucks, things like that, that may be accessing some of these smaller alleyways. The original design of some of those alleyways were very minimal in terms of their structural segment. And when I say structural segment, I'm talking about the asphalt, the base material, and the subgrade. And so part of what was proposed before I got here, and I agreed with it when I got here to the city, is to take a look at those, especially ones that may not need any utility work going forward or very limited utility work going forward. Instead of trying to replace that with an asphalt structural section where, let's say, for example, and I think I shared with you a geotechnical report that said that the original design was 3 inches of asphalt over basically zero base. So to replace that from a asphalt structural section, you would have to dig down into the base quite a bit and be pulling out all this material to get a structural section that's going to last a long time. With PCC or concrete, you can give an equivalent structural load that's equivalent to a much thicker asphalt section in a much thinner process. And so it actually allows us to do work more efficiently. The Portland cement or the concrete's actually more expensive, but it lasts longer. So there's all kinds of reasons why we would do it in Portland cement rather than asphalt. And that's probably the biggest reason, is to try to make sure that we get something that lasts a long time and try to fit within that old design criteria.
Great, thank you for that. And the one alley that is going to be in asphalt, as I understand, I did have a question come in about this from a member of the public. This particular alley runs the length of the shopping center where Grocery Outlet and Rite Aid are, and parallels M Street. And it sounds like this alley, its substructure, I think you mentioned, is in better condition, right? And actually lends itself to asphalt versus going concrete, correct?
Right, so part of it that we want to do is stretch the dollars as far as we can. So we don't want to overspend on something that we don't need to. So when we looked at the geotechnical report, our design engineer, again, I'm trying not to get too technical, but we have certain values that we use to do calculations of thicknesses of asphalt. One of the values we use is California R value. When you have a very high R value and a lot of base and subbase, putting back an asphalt cap is much more effective and efficient in terms of spending dollars. And you get quite a bit of lifespan out of that because you still have a really good structural segment below the asphalt. So in those scenarios, we don't want to have to dig out a whole bunch of really good material that's useful for us, that's already been paid for and installed, to put in concrete. And so in those situations, to make sure that we stretch the dollars, we would make the determination that that would be an asphalt cap. We would remove the top portion of that asphalt that has some of the, I call them superficial, but maybe surface-related distresses and not any subgrade or subbase distresses, and then put back the same amount of asphalt back.
And that would be rated to uphold the delivery traffic and larger vehicles that typically go through that alley versus the residential alleys.
That's correct. So if you can imagine that, obviously, that when you're sort of building that cake of subbase, subgrade, subbase and asphalt, the thicker that is, the more load it can take, right? And so when you looked at our geotechnical reports and we took samples, you can see that that original design was much thicker in the 13 to 15 or 18 inches versus some places that was only 3 inches in terms of thickness. So it was already designed to take that heavy load.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate you trying not to keep it too technical. I love soaking all this stuff up, but that's just me. I know that folks want kind of the bare basics on it. Last thing is, I'll just share that this particular neighborhood, Fremont North, if my dates are correct in my head, in 2020, they had their iron pipes replaced for water. In 2021 or 22, they had their streets repaved after that. And now we're looking at their alleys, and this is going to be one of the neighborhoods that actually is now up to speed as far as all of its undergrounding goes for piping. Utilities should have been done prior to the paving, and then we had paving, and now we have asphalt resurfacing. And so I just want to thank Public Works for years-long effort in this particular neighborhood. And I know that there are many other neighborhoods that are falling under this. I know Kamala had a lot of work done this past summer, and we're going to look toward additional neighborhoods on this. And lastly, I will say, if you look at a map of the alleys that have been repaved in the city, I appreciate Public Works' effort on looking at an equitable way to approach that and seeing where the most need was, as you described earlier, Mr. Wolf. And there's a really good mix of essentially South Oxnard and North Oxnard alleys that are receiving this treatment. So thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, any additional speakers on this item?
Mayor Zaragoza, there's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay, first by Councilman Turan, second by Valenzuela. Please vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item is Public Works, number 4. Subject is Golf Management Agreement. Recommendation the City Council authorize staff to enter into negotiations with American Golf Corporation for a new agreement to manage the River Ridge Golf Course operations.
I thought you were...
The Public Works and Transportation Committees was scheduled to consider this item on Jan 9, 2024. The meeting was canceled, and this item is being brought directly to the council for action due to that time constraints. And if, again, this is a pre-recorded item, and do we have any speakers on this item?
Mayor Zaragoza, we have one virtual speaker from Manuel Herrera.
Okay.
Manuel, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, it's Manuel Herrera again. I guess I'm on a roll tonight. Now, I just wanted to see if Mr. Wolf can elaborate just a little bit more when it comes to Mr. Turan's question on whether the alleys will be paved with cement or asphalt. So he said it was going to be. He said it was going to be cement.
Manny, you were eating your popcorn. We already approved that item.
Oh, you approved it, right? Okay. No, you know what? I was
okay.
Talking
Go ahead.
And then, I'm sorry. I was on hold, and then the phone got disconnected, so I had to call back. But okay. That's
okay.
Fine.
What was a quick question? So, or you can call Mr. Wolf. 385.
Okay.
8055. Call him tomorrow.
I will call him tomorrow.
Okay. Any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
Mayor Zaragoza, there's no additional speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay. Any questions of Steve on this item?
I'll move the recommended action if there's no questions.
Moved by Bert Perello.
Second.
Second by Senator Madrigal. Please vote. Okay.
Motion carries 7-0. Oh,
Nope.
I'm sorry. I have a no by Councilmember Turan. So motion carries 6-1.
Thank you.
Thank
Our next
you.
Item number 5 is Public Works Department. First Amendment to Trade Service Agreement 3230037 with R.A. Atmore and Sons Incorporated for citywide on-call abatement services. And recommendation of the City Council to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a First Amendment to a trade service agreement with R.A. Atmore and Sons Incorporated to increase not to exceed from $200,000 to $1,400,000 through June 30, 2025 for citywide on-call abatement services. The Public Works Transportation Committee was scheduled to consider this item on Jan 9th, 2024. The meeting was canceled and the item was being brought directly to the City Council for action due to time constraints. And this is a pre-recorded per Measure M. And we have Mr. Wolf. If any questions? If not, we need a motion on this item.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Any speakers? Oh, we're almost there.
We have no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
There's no discussion. I will move the recommended action.
First by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Batsua. Please vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, item 6, Community Development Department, on-call consulting services for community development. Recommendation of the City Council, 1, approve and authorize the execution of a Second Amendment to agreement with Rincon Consultants Incorporated for an on-call contract planning services, increasing the agreement amount by $500,000 for a total not to exceed $1,750,000. 2, and approve and authorize an execution of First Amendment to the agreement of CSG Consultants Incorporated for an on-call contract planning services, increasing the agreement amount by $250,000 for a total amount agreement of $500,000. The Community Service, Public Service, Housing Development Committee was scheduled to consider this item on 1/9/2024, and the meeting was canceled. The item is being brought directly to the City Council due to time constraints. And with this is a pre-recorded item, Measure M. Council members, what's your pleasure?
Mayor Zaragoza,
Any speakers?
there is no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, we need a first.
I'll move this recommended action.
First by Turan, second by Councilman Batsua. Please vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, our last item is Housing Department. Subject, accessibility remodel project at Colonia site. Recommendation that the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City Council of Oxnard, 1, approve and authorize the Housing Director to execute a firm fixed price contract in the amount of $2,418,020 to MDJ Management Agreement Number A8544, using funds from the Housing Authority of City of Oxnard Business Activity Fund, property located at 1040, 1070C, 1100B, 1130E, Colonia Road, to and authorize the Housing Director to execute a work orders for work to be performed. This item did not originate in committee. This project was included in the Housing Authority, a City of Oxnard Capital Fund Program 5-year action plan, which was approved by the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority for the City of Oxnard on April 6, 2021. And there was a pre-recorded item per Measure M, and we do have Mr. Emilio Ramirez for any questions.
Any speakers?
Any speakers?
Mayor Zaragoza, there's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Commissioner, okay, Commissioner Perello, followed to Commissioner Turan.
Good evening. I just one question. If there is going to be major work done in these units to bring our inventory up to speed with requirements of the law, will there be any requirements to evict individuals and departments?
No, the units are not occupied. That's why we're phasing them in the way that we're phasing them.
That answers. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Turan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. I'm wondering if you can just give a quick synopsis on this item and why we're now looking at the item in front of us about doing these remodels for accessibility at these particular units.
Thank you, Councilman Emilio Ramirez, Housing Director. You may recognize this type of item before you. Not this item, but a similar form has been before you in the past. We are in the midst of converting existing public housing units into accessible public housing units, or ADA accessible public housing units. We have to do that because we lost some accessible public housing units in the disposition of de las Cortes, the Colonia Village. So we are in the process of converting our existing stock into this. And so that's why you're seeing multiple items come before you over the course of time. So this is a continuation of that effort.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, they're not currently occupied and we're doing the work now.
We would have to relocate them, obviously, but I mean, thankfully, we have the ability to manage it, given that we have quite a few of these projects to undertake.
Okay, thank you.
Then it's part of the 5-year action plan too.
It is part of the 5-year capital fund plan.
Capital fund, right.
For the housing authority.
Action plan. Okay, so motion.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay, first by Valenzuela, who second? Andrade? Or Tehran? Tehran, I'm sorry, okay. Please vote, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that's our last one. and
Thank you.
we-
Motion carries 8-0.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.